Welcome to Pull My Focus, Adventures in the World of Digital Filmmaking. Today, we're going to present you with handy set tips to help make your sets run better. I've been working in the film and video and animation world since the late 80s, and when you work on sets, you can't help but pick up a lot of tips from different departments that have become standard practice. A film crew is made up of many departments with different disciplines with one goal in mind, working together to get the shot in the can. On your sets, you and everyone on your crew is more than likely wearing many of those hats at once. It would be good to have these standard practices under them. When you set up to shoot on a stage or location, and let's admit it, most of the locations are our homes, like my dining room right here, there are lights, monitors, hair dryers, and other items that need to be powered. That means cables everywhere. Sets are temporary, especially lighting setups, so it's easy to just willy-nilly throw cables all over the place without worrying about their placement, because you're just going to wrap it all by the end of the day, if not earlier. Sure, you need to have set legs and be mindful of where you're walking, but for general safety, whenever a cable goes across a doorway or a well-trafficked area, it's very important for it to be taped down. Gaffer's tape across the cable with a few cross pieces perpendicular to it to help hold it in place. You could also throw a stiff rug or rubber mat over it, but note that if the cables are thick and it creates a speed bump, you may need to put a white piece of tape across the top of it so that people will notice and not trip over it. Oh, and on gaffer's tape, always add a tab on the end. G-tape is some seriously strong stuff. I mean, it'll rip paint off of walls. So getting it off of something without a tab is a real pain. So put a tab on the end. We know that sandbagging lights is a good idea to help keep them from being tipped over or to be moved when they're bumped. But sometimes you have to place a light stand in such a way where a leg is going out into a trafficked area. Though the light is already sufficiently bagged, put an extra bag on the leg that's sticking out to help prevent it from being kicked. And if it is, it's much less likely for it to be moved. We don't have basements in California. Where's that stairwell going to? Level the camera. If your tripod doesn't have a built-in bubble level, you can get one at a hardware store. You may need to place it on the tripod head without the camera if there's no flat surface on your camera. Some DSLRs have a built-in leveler. An unleveled camera may look fine at first, but then you pan the camera and it totally screws up your shot. If you're moving the camera or adjusting the height, put the lens cap on. If someone is spraying something on set, cap or cover the lens to protect it. If you're building the camera or doing some work on it, take the lens off. Put it back on once you're set. Protect your lens always. When you change the lens, always dust off the end cap and the end of the lens. Getting dust or hair in the back of your lens or on your sensor is bad news. Which brings us to, when shooting film, hundreds of feet of film will go through the gate, literally, like physical film. I know it's very analog. And that film will drag any errant hair or broken piece of film sprocket through the gate with it. So whenever you are working on the last shot, when you called cut, the AD would call check the gate before anyone broke down the setup. And the AC would pop the lens off and with a flashlight check to see if there was anything in the gate. And if there was, they would clean it out and they'd shoot it again. Now, in digital media, we don't have that physical gate and that concern. But we still check the gate by reviewing what was recorded on whatever digital media we're using, SD cards, etc. You can take the SD cards out of the camera and review them on a laptop and on a bigger monitor, or some videographers have a button programmed on their camera to auto playback the last 3 seconds of whatever take was recorded on their media. Always check the gate.
Cut. And cut. Yay, we got it. Check the gate. Excellent.
On an indie set, you never have enough time. But when you've got a good take in the can, get another one. It's called a safety, and it's done in case something was wrong with that earlier take that you just didn't catch while you were filming. Better to have 2 good takes in the can than 1. Better to have 2 good takes in the can than just 1. Get a safety. If you don't have a dedicated sound guy, more than likely you're going to forget to get room tone. Here's a trick that I started doing when I was an AD. When you know you're working on the safety or the last take, let everyone know that you're going to get room tone at the end. When cut is called, yell out room tone, don't move, and keep whatever device you're recording audio to running. This way you'll continue that quiet for another 30 seconds or more, however much room tone you need. Make sure that you log it well where that room tone was recorded for your editor so they can find it easily later on. I love shots that feel natural with characters cross-talking and all that. But if you have characters who, or a character who interrupts another in a 2-shot, in the single, don't interrupt. They're off camera. You need clean dialogue, or that is clean audio of the dialogue of that actor who's on camera, whose single you're shooting. It may be awkward for an actor on camera to just stop what they're saying without actually being interrupted, but that's what you gotta do. If you're doing a dolly shot, whether it's on a doorway dolly, a tripod with wheels, or a slider, you need to mark the start position of the move and the end position of the move. Here's how we mark it. Run a piece of white tape either under the dolly or on the side of it where you can see it when you're pushing it. Make a pointer from a white piece of show card and tape that to the dolly pointing at the tape. Mark your start point and your end point. For your end point, have a line leading up to it. This gives you warning as you're pushing the dolly during the take, letting you know that you're coming close to the end and that you need to start feathering to a stop. Which brings us to feathering. Pushing a dolly is a lot heavier and harder than pushing a DSLR on a slider, but feathering at the start and the stop is important on either. When you start the move, slowly ramp up to speed so that you don't jerk the camera. Do this by pushing only with your arms until you get up to speed and then move with your whole body. But don't overextend your arms. Keep them bent and flexed at the elbows so they act as a spring and can absorb any shock that you don't want to transfer to the dolly and therefore the camera. When stopping on your end mark, do the opposite. Stop your body, but slowly extend your arms, feathering the dolly and the camera to a stop. It takes some practice, but it's well worth it. It's a very zen thing. Put tape marks in a T-shape down so talent knows where to stand. This way, whenever they have to leave, whether it's part of the shot or they have to go to craft service or makeup or whatever, it's very easy for them to get back into the position that they're framed and lit for. Actors also use these marks out of the corner of the eye to hit when they're having to walk into a position. If it's too tricky, because maybe it's a tight shot, ask the actor if they'd like a sandbag as a mark. This way, they know they've hit their mark when they feel it with their foot. They just have to be careful not to trip over it. Or they could just do what Spencer Tracy did. These are just skimming the top of the tons of on-set tips that exist, but I think that these are probably the most helpful and ones that are practically a standard. Stay tuned to Pull My Focus for more tips and techniques and tricks. Make sure to watch some of our other videos.